Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevating Your Life. Paula Vail here. I am thrilled, beyond thrilled, to share with you today just a fascinating guest. We have with us today Karen V. Johnson, JD. She is a graduate of Georgetown Law Center, a former Fulbright Scholar in Afghanistan, and holds master's degrees in public health and public and international affairs. Karen is a retired federal administrative law judge who practiced criminal and energy law for more than 30 years. She also is a former U.S. Army officer. Thank you for your service, Karen. And Major USAR inactive. Karen was personally trained by Alberto Vallado, love that, and founder of the Four Winds, and is on faculty at the Four Winds Society, and is a master practitioner of energy medicine. She has trained extensively in the techniques of illumination, soul retrieval, extractions of energies and entities, divination, and death rites. Karen is the author of the amazing book, Grieving, Using Energy Medicine to Alchemize Grief and Loss. I loved your book. Karen, I am so happy to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, I'm just thrilled. Well, I would love it if you'd like to share a little more of your background, feel free. And then maybe delve into, why you wrote this book. Tell us about what happened in your life and what drove you, made you feel like you wanted to do this for us.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I think like many people, I had dreams and ambitions when I was young. And one of them was to be an anthropologist, archaeologist. But, my parents convinced me that that was too dangerous, in those days, long ago, before there was no email and there were no videos, no Zoom, anything like that, no cell phone. So to do the smart thing and go to law school. And so that's what I did. Among other things. I got a few other degrees along the way, but I went to law school and practiced law for 30 years. And I think like many people, I became unconscious. We get so wrapped up in our daily lives with surviving, right? So you have children, you have mortgages, you have car payments, you have elderly parents. So you're kind of in this sandwich kind of generation. And just busy and trying to always grab the brass ring and all those sorts of things. And so I really don't remember much about my 40s. I kind of passed by in a big blur. And so I was busily going about my life and kind of thinking, gee, I guess I had a lifetime appointment, and a lot of the judges they were there till their 90s, until they basically had to wheel them out. And so I thought, well, that's probably what I'll do. I don't know what else I would do. And then my 27-year-old son passed from a heroin overdose. And it was unexpected. He wasn't an addict, but they went to a party and got drunk and decided to try heroin. And he was a big guy, 6'8", and they just gave him too much. He died instantly. And so that was that moment when you have the loss, an unexpected loss, and the loss of a child. Those are the two most difficult. And when you have them together, the unexpected loss of a child, you're in a world of hurt. But for me, his death was a doorway, and it was a doorway into a spiritual life that I really didn't have before. And so I can't say that I was one of those people that had been, spiritual and practicing things for years and years and years. I hadn't. I kind of had turned off that aspect and said, I'm not sure I believe in any of it. And if you'd asked me then, I probably would have said alive is alive and dead is dead, right? And until my son came back and really from beyond, and I saw him and began to actually, he works with me. I do a lot of transitioning of souls that get stuck in between worlds. And so he comes and he helps me with that. And we've had a long journey together. And I talk about that in the book too. So, and then along the way, I went to a medium and said, hey, I can see him, I can sense him, but I can't hear what he's saying. Can you tell me what he's saying? And I said, he's standing right there. And after the session, which was fantastic, she said, well, you might have some abilities yourself. Very few of my clients come in and can see their departed loved ones. So then it was a journey. I really just wanted to do anything to contact my son more. So mediumship training, Kabbalah, all kind of spiritual stuff, crystals, everything that I could get to, because I really wanted to contact him more. And it led me eventually to an evolutionary astrologer who looked at my chart and said, well, you're moving away from Uranus, shame, blame, guilt, to Neptune, the spiritual, mystical path. And at that moment, I really didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, oh, what is that? Pray tell. What does that mean? Right. And so he said, well, a woman that had a reading like you became a shaman. And I'm like, a shaman? Are there shamans now? I thought they were all, historical figures. And so my left brain mind did what left brains do, and I Googled it. And up popped the Four Winds Society and Alberto Viodo. And so I found myself 3 weeks later on a plane to Joshua Tree, California, to take my first class. And the rest sort of is history.
I love it. I just love it. And I'm a big fan of Alberto, myself being a shaman. My shaman instructor trained under him. Oh my gosh. I can only imagine what that experience was like, Karen.
Totally amazing.
You walk away seeing through new eyes, don't you?
Oh, you really do.
Yeah.
You really do. And I mean, for me, it was that place where I was able to leave everything behind. My job, I retired, I gave away, sold all my house goods, everything, artwork, everything, and went on a 2.5-year journey around the world to try and understand grief and death and loss, and how we might be able to walk with that and come out somehow. And I was struggling, I was devastated. So I left everything behind and journeyed. So the book is really my collection of experiences as well as a journey. So this is the journey of the bereaved.
So Karen, what would you say on that amazing worldwide trip you took? Out of that, what were the most amazing, life-changing things that you realized or learned about dealing with grief and loss?
Yeah, so some of the things that I learned from all the teachers is that, we carry a lot of shame, blame, guilt about our loved one and all the things we could have, should have, would have done, and how we're somehow at fault. And every single spiritual teacher, the answer was, and that was even Hanuman Temple in Taos, which is a beautiful place, John of God, everywhere, it's not your fault. His death is not your fault, right? And learning that we don't have control and accepting that, because we want to believe we have control over everything because it makes us feel safe. Mm-hmm. Right? So we want to think the idea that we don't have control is really upsetting. And so therefore we get sometimes very much stuck in the concept of shame, blame, guilt. It's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, because we're in control, right? We're the center of the universe. And so our loved ones have their own path, they have their own karma, they have their own things they need to learn in this life, and things that we're not responsible for.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard to accept that, isn't it? I mean, it is easy to get into, well, if I had done something different, it may have been a different outcome. It's so easy to get into that pattern, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, and partly is because we want to believe that we have control, and we want to believe that we could influence the outcome. And to have to accept that we couldn't is really hard, it's really hard to struggle with that, but it's true. So
Karen, when we take that step to give up control, what can open up to us? What can come for us and come to us and just, we can be expanded, can't we? What would you say to that?
Yeah, so when we give up control, then we can relax into the flow of life, right? And we can begin to see synchronicities, opportunities that we won't see if we're controlling everything, right? Because controlling it, our world is about this big, 3 inches apart. That's this big, what we can see. If we can allow and let go and be in the flow of the universe is this big, it's endless.
Yes.
So allowing ourselves to let go of control and sometimes the busyness that goes along with it, right? So we're busy, 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 busy from night to day. We're planned out, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And getting in touch with that concept that maybe there are uncomfortable emotions that we're trying to avoid by our busyness.
Yes.
And so allowing ourselves again to get into the flow of life and relax and let go a little bit and not be constantly busy.
Yes.
Allows us to sit with those uncomfortable emotions.
Yes.
So that's really my book's foundation, is to have people sit, and there's 16 exercises that they can sit with and really sit in quiet and in silence and with a pen and a paper and a candle, with radical honesty, answer questions with the intention of releasing them to the fire. And so we know fire is powerful because if we go into a temple or a church and they have candles to light, we just kind of go over and light a candle for someone. And we're getting into that ceremonial space, into that sacred space. And when we enter into sacred space, we're getting out of our reptilian brain, our day-to-day brain, into our neocortex, which is the brain of ceremony. And when we're in ceremony, we can move things like a feather blowing in the breeze, instead of at the physical level where everything is heavy. I'm trying to do this and this and everything is heavy, right? So things like, who are you judging? Non-judgment. Who's judging you? You can think about all the people. I can think about a lot of people that I was judging for my son's death, right? So many people. And so allowing that to go, allowing yourself to see it and name it, kind of getting it out of your head. We carry around a lot of stuff in our head, put it in paper and then put it in the fire with the intention of releasing it and opening our hearts to new ways. So that's the shamanic work, is like breath work. It's like breathing. So we breathe in fresh and we breathe out the stale. We release the stale so the fresh can come in. So this is that metaphor. Shamanic work is always like that, as you know. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Breathe in the fresh and let go of the stale. And, and that's when, I've always just been passionate about how amazing it is, just what our breath does. Just taking the time to get into those long, deep breaths. It activates our brain, does so much for our body. Something that simple, we can really affect ourselves, can't we?
Oh, absolutely. Because sometimes when we're under a lot of stress and we're in the throes of shame, blame, guilt, and fear and control and all those things, we forget to breathe.
Yeah.
We're breathing very shallowly. So breathe, taking long breaths, especially if you can have a longer exhale. It gets the parasympathetic nervous system going. You're releasing heavy energy stored in the liposomes. And so you're doing lots of good things for yourself, just breathing.
Yes, yes. What would you say, what tips could you give us on giving ourselves more self-compassion? It's so easy in life, to have the, I should have done this, I should have done that. And just, and there can be times where we're trying to love everybody else and we forget to love ourselves. what tips could you give us on bringing more self-compassion into our lives?
I think that's a process too, and it's a journey, right? So we can say, oh, it's so much more than just giving yourself a bubble bath or some nice chocolate. That's something in the physical realm that we can do. But what can we do energetically? What can we do spiritually that is going to help us with that? And to take better care of ourselves, to find time for ourselves. And so those are those 16 exercises in my book that people work through. And as you work through them, and so they mirror the medicine wheel, south, west, north, and east, and 4 practices in each direction. So in the south direction, we're becoming unstuck. And we're looking at practices like non-judgment, non-suffering, non-engagement, and the practice of beauty. And then we're moving to the west direction and we become lighter. And then the north, we wake up and we go, huh, okay, right? My life has changed. It really has. And begin to create something, begin to look around and say, well, okay, what am I going to do now? And then when we get to the east, we become reborn into a life, a new life that we create out of the ashes of the old that honor our loved ones.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So it's this, we got to go on the journey. You know, we've got to find out where we're stuck and how we want to proceed and how we want to, what's underneath all of that.
Yes. Yes.
We get lighter. And as we get lighter, then this idea of self-care becomes easier.
Yes. Yes. And would you say that these techniques are going to also help us to help others that may be going through grief and loss?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
a coworker, a family member, a friend?
Yeah. Because I think in our culture, we just don't have a spot for grieving. It's sort of like divorce or something like that. It's associated with negative pain, loss, sadness, despair, hopelessness. And we want to push it away, you know, and we want to tell people it's time to get over it. It's time to move on. I don't know whose time it is, but instead, I think if we look at it as a journey, and if we see it as a journey, then we can have more compassion for other people who are experiencing pain and loss, because many times those people, and I was one of those people, become socially isolated because we know we make people around us uncomfortable. And so I finally told my friends, look, think of me as only having half a heart now, like a zombie. And zombies don't go to lunch, and zombies don't go to dinner, and zombies don't go to movies. I just can't, right? So trying to do things in the physical realm that people want you to do is heavy. And we can't quite get there. There's a lot of books that'll give you great ideas about what to do, the steps you can take in the physical realm to move beyond. But my book is something you're going to do before you do all that, so that you can do those things. If you're stuck and you're stuck in your grief and you have no idea how to get unstuck, you're going to socially isolate and wall yourself off and make your loved one's room a shrine and say, I'm never going to get over this, and just get lost in hopelessness and despair. And we all know people that have done that. People that have, I know someone who continued to work, didn't even tell his coworkers that his son had died for 16 years, and then finally had a complete breakdown. So we can deny it, we can hold it in, we can try to prevent it, but one way or other, it's going to get us, right? We have to deal with this. We can't just ignore it or pretend it's going to go away.
Yes, yes. And you give so many tools and, ideas in your book of how people can take the steps and do things. And really, would you say it is really a step by step?
It is.
To get through that, different level of the, living with the grief of a loss.
Yeah, that's why I call it living grieving, because we live with it. We never get over it.
Yeah.
We might get through it. We go on this journey, and sometimes, even now, sometimes I'll get knocked over by a wave of grief because my son's not here in the physical form, and I miss that. even though I have a wonderful relationship with them in the spiritual form. But that's okay. You know, I mean, we just have to allow ourselves to take our own journey, not somebody else's journey. And if that means it's going to take you 4 or 5 years or more, that's okay. And somebody else, a shorter journey. I think it all depends on all the circumstances, but we can make the journey a little shorter, a little less painful if we work through all the places where we are stuck. And everybody's stuck somewhere else. Where I'm stuck is not where you're stuck or somebody else. Everybody had some experience that's hanging them up, or maybe were disappointed by loved ones like sisters, brothers, mothers, right? So to be able to release that, to write it down, and I say with radical honesty, because you can write anything down you want to release, any name, any person, anything, because you're going to burn it in the flames. Nobody's going to find your journal. Nobody's going to find what you've written. This is yours. This is your time to be radically honest so that you can release what needs to be released.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, that's a great example of one little step. So someone listening right now that says, well, I'd never heard of that, or I didn't realize I can just write something down and just burn it and let it go. It's really something simple, but could be very powerful, can't it?
Oh, totally. And so your intention in burning it is that you're going to release it. So you're not holding it anymore, right? So it's just not stuck within you. It's that releasing it and opening your heart to new ways. So that's what we're doing 16 times in the book. We're releasing and opening, releasing and opening. And so by the time you've done it 16 times, people really get the hang of it. And I have classes, and people can visit me on my website, KarenJohnson.net. And I have classes on grief and grieving. And I take people 5 weeks through the book, through all the exercises. And we do it in community on Zoom. So people can hear other people's stories, and they can hear what they're sharing about non-judgment or non-suffering, and say, oh my gosh, I forgot that one. Let me go back and burn that too. I have that too, right? So it's really fun, you know, to kind of work and get ideas from each other and in community, and kind of by the end of it, you know, are kind of together and experiencing things together and have a little bit of a community. And one of the practices I love talking about is indigenous alchemy. You think, what does that mean? Indigenous means native or inherent, and alchemy, transformation. So what if that's how we're wired? We have an innate, a native desire for transformation. That's what we are as humans. And keeping ourselves stuck in our grief and loss is not only not good for our loved ones on the other side, because we're kind of holding on to their kite string a little bit. They can't fly as high as they might, but it's also keeps energy stuck in us that can become autoimmune diseases, cancer. If I see so many of my clients that have serious illnesses, if we go back, there's often unresolved grief. Old grief, multiple griefs, compound grief, anticipatory grief, people that are waiting for somebody to die, people who have children who are addicted, or other loved ones. Yeah. And every day you don't know, are they going to make it? Are they going to make it? Are they going to make it this time? And so many people experiencing suffering and pain and loss. And so that's really who my book is for.
I just have to give you a heartfelt thank you, Karen, because your classes, your book, all that you're doing so much for others, helping so many people. I am just so grateful. You are really a gift for us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's part of what I want everybody to get to, creating a new life out of the ashes of the old that honors our loved one. Sometimes in our society, we get this idea that if we move on, that our loved ones somehow are going to think we didn't love them. And certainly you cannot win with grief. So if you grieve too long, they say, oh, she needs to be medicated. She's really bad. And if you don't grieve long enough, well, she certainly didn't care. So you might as well go on your own journey. Right? You're not
yes.
You're not going to get the affirmation one way or the other. So you
Yeah.
must take your own journey.
Own journey. I love that. I love that.
Don't be afraid to honor your loved one by creating a new life out of the ashes of the old, and refusing to be stuck. Honor them in a different way.
Creating a new life. I love that. Oh my gosh, Karen. Well, with a few minutes left in the show, what last words do you want to share with everyone today, Karen?
What I love to tell people is, remember to practice beauty every day. Do one thing for yourself that makes you happy, that brings beauty to your life. If it's a flower, if it's a dinner, if it's going to an art show, if it's watching a sunrise or a sunset. Because in our grief, we lose touch with beauty, the things that brought us beauty. We shut down and isolated. So we're just digging deeper and deeper, those neural networks of grief and despair and hopelessness. And so by creating beauty every day, one thing for yourself, just one small thing, you're creating new neural networks that can help you in this process of creating a new life.
I love that. I love that.
I would say, write it on a piece of paper, stick it on your refrigerator. So
Yes.
every day you're going, oh yeah, what did I do today? Oh, okay, what can I do today?
Yes. Yes. And what that can open up and what that can do for, our attitude and mindset for the day. Really, there are so many just small little things we can do that just can change our lives.
Yes, for sure.
Gosh.
We just have to remind ourselves, it's so easy to forget. And to allow yourself, give yourself permission to transform.
Yes, yes. Oh, Karen, thank you so much. This is so fantastic. Everyone check out Living Grieving, using energy medicine to alchemize grief and loss. It's a beautiful book, and it's a gift to all of us, Karen. Oh my God.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. I am just so grateful. Everyone out there, thank you for joining us. Love, hugs, and blessings. So happy to have had you join us. Karen, thank you so much. Love, hugs, and blessings.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, dear.